CJ was back tonight. Getting another guy back from injury. Najee Marshall is back. LJ Alvarado was back. And Trey Murphy was doubtful tonight, so his return is soon, which is sooner than I expected. PI and Zion have been available, and over the last little bit, they've looked pretty good. We'll get your thoughts first, Reek, but what have you thought so far of this Pelicans team, considering the fact that they have actually remained pretty healthy?
Playing 500 basketball, they've been a lot better over like the last few weeks. They beat the Kings back-to-back games. They held Sabonis in check, especially on the boards. But the main thing is like you said, the health. Zion's played 24 games, 25 including tonight. BI, I think this is his 16th game. CJ's back, which is good, but they were playing pretty good without CJ, which was, I think, the most impressive thing. Like, guards were stepping up. I love Dyson Daniels, man. That kid can play. That kid can play really good basketball. Love his intensity on the defensive side of the floor. Has a little crafty offensive game, getting into the paint and stuff. Pretty solid passer. Love his game. Jordan Hawkins is a rookie that has played really well. I think that bodes well for guys that aren't just the one-and-done guys like, we always see. He's came in doing exactly what he was doing in college, shooting the lights out. Like, his game translates right over for a team that definitely needs jump shooting, but with Trey Murphy being out, so far this season, they could definitely use that boost from the three-point line. He's been great. I didn't even realize that Najee Marshall has not been healthy. Like, I kind of just forgot about him, but that's another guy that was a key rotation player for them last season and played pretty good basketball for them. Some nights could step up, be like a 20-point scorer, shooting the corner three-point shot pretty decently. This is a deep team. I think we forget how many good NBA players that this organization has had on their roster. It's just always been about health. So just hopefully the basketball gods are generous and we can just see this team play as healthy of basketball that we've seen them play. So far, so good. Hopefully Zion can remain on the court because he's the big guy that they need to be healthy. But outside of that, man, for season, it was up and down to kind of start. I think they're kind of starting to even out. We're starting to see this is the type of team that they can be. And that's even without Trey Murphy being back, who was so good for them last season. So if he's back, especially if it's ahead of schedule, which hopefully they don't rush him back because they might have the luxury of guys like Hawkins stepping up, Dyson Daniels stepping up, Jose Alvarado coming back. They might have that flexibility to not rush him all the way back into the rotation or at least playing big minutes right off the injury, right? So they kind of have that flexibility, but, fun team. Them being healthy is just the major thing, though. Hopefully it continues because we talked about them preseason. That was the question mark. We're like, if this team can stay healthy, if they're a top 16, we're not surprised. But if they're out of the play-in because of injuries, we wouldn't be surprised about that either. That's just the variance. So hopefully this just continues for them.
Yeah, I mean, as of now, they're still in ninth, so they have a ways to go. But I didn't know Trey Murphy was coming back so soon. I really thought he was about to be out till January or even February, All-Star break time. So if he comes back sooner for them, I mean, there's a lot of nights where he's their third best player. What I will say, when I was looking at them, I was quite surprised that they've been able to put together an above-average defense. I saw at one point, when I was looking at it, they were 11th. I think now it says on Basketball Reference about 13th. Either way, above average, kind of closing in on top 10. And for your starting center being JV, and then Zion, he was kind of a defensive force in college, but in the NBA, not as much. For them to be even that good on defense, that's real solid. And for their defense to be better than their offense, I think that also kind of shows good things because with CJ McCollum missing the majority of the season so far, you get your starting point guard back. I mean, that's going to make your offense a whole lot better. Some other things, like you were mentioning with Jordan Hawkins, he kind of struggled in I forget if it was Summer League or preseason. I think it might have been Summer League, but he was one of those guys who it's shooter comes over, the shot's not falling, everybody's really concerned. So for him to really be able to bounce back and show the shooting is legit, the concerns were just kind of whatever. And for him to just be effective out the gate, that's really good. And like you were talking about, that depth and the amount of good players they have on this roster, it's very promising. It's very promising. They have that potential to be really good, and we saw them when they were playing at that 1 seed level for a little bit last year. But we also know there's the bad times where they're beat up, guys aren't in, and they can't seem to win a game for a while. But it seems like, I mean, they're more balanced this year, and the two most important guys that need to be in are in, and that's going to be a win no matter what. Like, however I'm evaluating this Pelicans team, I see Zion and Brandon Ingram on the court for the majority of the games, and that's going to be a win regardless. Like, Zion's production's down a little bit from prior years, but if he's doing a little bit less out there and it's going to allow him to rest his body more and allow him to be able to suit up in April, I like that. Like, that's going to put them in a much better position to succeed as long as they can remain good enough throughout the regular season to, like, put themselves in position to compete in the postseason. I like that outlook a lot, and I trust in Willie Green a lot. I've been a fan of him since he first got there, so as long as he's on the end of the bench, like, I'm pretty positive that they can do some good stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely been encouraged so far this year by them outside of the health, which is evident. You touched on it, Gabe. Defensively, I've been really impressed by them compared to what I expected. You mentioned JV being the starting center. He's looked a little bit better defensively this year, and by no means has he been an elite defensive center because that's just never going to be JV. But I've been impressed by him so far this year on the defensive end, and offensively, he's been a little bit better as well. The mid-range and the three-point shot has been a little bit more efficient compared to the back end of last year, which has been a big help for them. You mentioned Dyson Daniels earlier, Reek. Love what he does for this team, specifically on the defensive end. I mean, as an on-ball guy, he's not great, but off-ball, he's a very smart player, gets in the right passing lanes, causes a ton of deflections, great help defender. Like, he is a very smart defender and is the type of guy that you don't want to be your point of attack guy, but if you can have him sitting off ball and just being a disturber, he's a brilliant defender on that end. Herb Jones continues to be an elite perimeter defender and has been better again on offense this year. Just slow in offensive improvements from him, and not to a great level, but the drive looks better this year. The finishing at the rim under pressure looks better. The three-point shot has been a little bit more efficient. He's creeping up to 35% now this year as opposed to 33% the last couple. So nice little steady improvements from him. Those are the types of things that I'm really impressed by with this Pelicans team outside of the health, because that's always going to be the main caveat. But a lot of these secondary guys have looked good. And you mentioned, Gabe, of course, the Hawkins shooting. He's been great so far. Matt Ryan has come in and played a pretty important role while they've been dealing with injuries as well. And he's shot the three ball extremely well. How much he matters once Trey Murphy is back, with Najee Marshall back, that remains to be seen. But he's come in and filled a role at least while they needed it. So I've really liked what I've seen from a lot of their secondary guys, from a lot of their complementary pieces. Jose Alvarado being back now is only going to continue to help the defense as well. So I'm really encouraged by this depth. It's a lot of guys and a lot of guys who are producing very well. So health being consistent and staying the way it has been, I think that they're in a really good spot right now to continue to have a really good regular season. They got a lot of guys who are producing really well for them. And like you mentioned, Gabe, I think Willie Green can continue to do a pretty good job for them. I've been pleasantly surprised, even health considered. I've really liked what I've seen, considering that they had so many injuries going into this season.
Definitely. I'm glad you guys both shouted out Willie Green too, because I forgot to mention him. But just one of the most, I think, sound coaches. Doesn't get, I think, nearly enough credit for taking over this team when he did. Got them to the playoffs year one. They were a game out last year. Kept them competitive no matter who's been playing, no matter the adversity they faced. Like, remember, they had like a 12, 13-game losing streak last season, and we're still a playing team. Still, we're one game away from making the playoffs. Like, Willie Green's excellent, man. Like, no matter what you kind of throw at him with this team, he still figures it out some way, somehow. He's going to have them playing competitive basketball. But they're a team that they're due to have a healthy season. Like, they should be hopefully one of those teams that we're looking at like, wow, like the injury bug didn't hit them too bad this year. Like, most of their guys played a good amount of games. So hopefully that stays the same for them. But you guys touched on it on every point, man. Even I forgot to mention Herb Jones. He's like their Lou Dort. It's like people forget about him. He just comes in, does his job, makes improvements each season. That's how Herb Jones has been since day one. So he's just another guy that has been so sound for them. And, yeah, like you said, like, been a little surprised, but I think everything's starting to kind of level out, like I said. And even though they're like 500 right now, I think we're going to slowly see them, especially with CJ coming back, them playing better and better and better. And they can, be in competition to get a top 6 seed eventually by the end of the year.
Yeah, it's good that, even now they aren't too far off. Like, they weathered the storm of him being out and were able to end up 500 when he came back. So that puts them in a good spot for sure. I mean, really, it just seems like Willie Green just always finds guys to just step in and become a good rotational piece. Like, I don't think anybody saw Jose Alvarado coming as a like rotation guy when he came out, and even like Matt Ryan, like he wasn't really finding a home. Like, I remember him being on the Lakers for a second, but I thought he'd be a guy who'd be like out the league pretty quick, and now he's consistently in their rotation, and that's what he's done for years. He doesn't have to do it as much now because his main two stars are in, but that's really what impresses me the most about him is like he's really one of those coaches who, no matter the circumstances, this team's going to succeed. They're going to succeed more when their guys are in, but they're always going to remain competitive. That's one thing I can always count on with New Orleans.
You guys know, like, Jose was, like, ACC Player of the Year and stuff. It's just funny because it's like he's not putting
I don't
those
follow
offensive
college.
numbers.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Like, it's just funny how guys have to adapt, like, from being the man in college on their team to Jose is picking you up 94 feet, just being a disruptive guy. We talk about Pat Bev all the time. He was like a Team USA guy in like college and stuff. He's now just that disruptive guy. Like, it's just funny, like guys figure out ways to survive in the league, and we viewed him as that. But it's like back in college, back in high school, these dudes were the guy. So it's just funny how we see guys that have to buy in that role. They do it so well, and then maybe the top guys that were high draft picks, they can't always develop into that. Like, it's just an interesting parallel.